Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to EnvironMental Podcast.
Yeah. This is our podcast where we investigate different aspects of sustainability. We choose a topic every month and we do a deep dive. Yeah.
Yes. This month, we are talking about renewable energy and the renewable transition.
Yes.
And we are in the midst of doing our research.
Mm-hmm.
And so this week, we actually read a book. We're going to talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's called The Carbon Boycott, and it was by Samuel Avery, who we're just basically calling Sam. Um, he and we actually have different opinions about this book this time. Whereas, previously we've mostly agreed, I think, but I think this month we have a different opinion about our book choice.
I mean, yes, I think yeah. I want to withhold my own judgment though, because I do think that my opinion of the book is really just is informed by the other work that we've been doing that had like in researching, fossil fuel industry. We've just been
Yeah.
doing this for, and researching this for several weeks now. So as an individual, yeah, I was just sort of I don't know, unfortunately underwhelmed, I guess is the answer or is the terminology, but that's not to say that this book is underwhelming,
Yeah.
inherently. Like
Yeah.
I just didn't really super vibe with it.
And I did. I
I liked aspects, absolutely. And it was like, yeah, but
I loved this book.
mhm.
Um, I felt like in the beginning, in the first couple of chapters, I had the same feeling that you did, where I was like, this is shit, I know. It's
Mhm.
very nicely laid out, but this is stuff that we've been researching and so recently have been researching.
Right.
And I felt tired from it. I was
Yes.
like, okay,
And I found myself
more of the
tuning out.
same.
Yes, right. Yeah.
It felt more of the same. But again, we've been doing this for a while and obsessing about it for a while, so okay. Um but you know, after that, like I really appreciated after the first couple of chapters where it was like, here's the overview of why I'm writing this book.
Mhm.
I felt like excited to hear another person on the same page, right? Like this book felt so much like our previous conversations, and it was so exciting for me to be like, okay, somebody else is looking at this in this interdisciplinary way. They realize we don't have a global plan. We don't have
Yeah.
one. This is a shit mess. This is not cool, you know. And also feel like he's several steps ahead of where we are. Like we're on this trajectory kind of following Sam, but he's like a few steps ahead. He's like created this throughout this book. He's like real life update, and then he gives an update on what his committee is doing in his town of Louisville to transition them to 100% renewable energy. And I appreciated that. I was like, okay, so it felt more of a mentorship than like a aha kind of book to me. And I felt like that was nice.
Yeah, because of those like periodic updates that were more recent. Yeah.
Yeah, the updates, kind of the like, here's a fact, and then it would be like, and here's an example, and then here's an update on what to do, on what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that felt like he was taking facts and then making it a blueprint for how to connect with a community that could try to enact change. And I like that. I like, as a person, I really like mentorships. I've had a
Okay.
lot. I've had a bunch in my life, and I feel like the mentors that I've had have been so important to me, and I got that vibe from this person that like he would
Interesting.
make a wonderful mentor.
That is something I have missed out in my life, and I really want to have incorporated. I want to incorporate is having a mentor. I've never experienced that. And I think that I absolutely would have benefited from that and still would. So maybe that's a different, yeah.
If you could have a mentor, what would it be on? I mean, should we reach out to Sam and be like, "Can you mentor us?"
I mean, I think my answer now would be quite different than maybe it would have been in my 20s, but
Mhm.
I yeah, if I had a mentor now, it would be somebody who probably had also gone through the starting an agency, running their own business, probably a woman, I think, because that's just cool. Um, and somebody who like, yeah, kind of, I think has either done something similar to our job or uh I guess. I don't really know. I don't know if they have to be somebody who works in your same industry. I don't know. I don't know how it works, to be completely honest. I don't even know how somebody goes about getting a mentor.
I've
What-
like
Like, is that an
happened.
actual thing? Like, does the mentor know that they're being a mentor to you? Is that like
I
a
mean, they
thing?
know, but I've never had like a mentorship that was like, "I'll be your mentor." Like it was
Okay.
always like a happenstance. It was always like, and they've always almost always been men.
Hmm.
Um, I like learning from men because I feel like they don't have the fear. They're not like institutionalized, especially men that are older. Like they don't have that, I don't know, the I don't know. They are the patriarchy, so they don't have the competence issue. They don't
Right.
have like all of the stuff. They're just like, this is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I missed out on. I was never taught about the patriarchy until I experienced it. But because I've had male mentors forever, but it's always been like, I had a job with a guy. I'm gonna call out Clarence because Clarence is the best mentor. Clarence and Tony are the two best mentors I've had. Tony is dead now. He was my herb school mentor, and he taught me how to make all of the medicine you see in this cabinet. And actually, some of it is from him. I have some gifts from him. He was incredible, incredibly healing and wonderful on my journey. Clarence Clarence is just chilling in Lansing, Michigan, being a fucking badass. Um, yeah, I mean, he just like, I was working at the tea house and we met, and he just was kind of like, he gave me a gift and asked me if I wanted a job, and I took the job, but and ended up like staying with him for several years, just like being just learning his trade completely, and like just being his like his right hand person, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
I love that.
So it's an informal relationship, but it is based on kind of having done work together, kind of learning from.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah, I don't know how people actually
I
communicate
think you can
that.
also pay someone. I think you can also pay
You
for a
can.
mentorship.
Yeah. I don't really like that as much because then I just feel like a client of someone to like I don't know if you actually have care about
Right.
me. But maybe that's in my head.
It's kind of both, but I mean, we care about all of our clients, right? You know?
Yeah, of course. Yes. Yeah, but it's like there's a difference between someone doing something out of like the goodness of their heart versus like, this is my job, so I'll sit here and I'll do it, you know?
Right. I mean, it was Tony's job. It was just also extra.
Mm. Hmm. Well,
We did extra work together. Kind of. It was like an above and beyond relationship. It was just
okay.
so great.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I got this vibe from Sam, and
Yeah. He's been doing it for a while, so he definitely, yeah, he works in the solar industry.
yes,
Yeah.
yep.
In Louisville, which is actually really interesting. When I think of like a progressive place that's, moving towards renewable energy, I don't think of Kentucky. So that's incredible,
Yeah,
like it's really cool.
flyover states
Yeah.
space. But I mean, that also makes sense. We don't think about I mean, I'm from the Midwest, but we don't think about flyover states ever at all, you know?
I'm sorry, Kentucky.
I'm
Maybe
not
you're doing some really
sorry.
cool stuff.
I'm not sorry. There's cool stuff happening everywhere, you know?
Hmm.
That one this was a cool Midwestern story, but like, you know, it's fine. There's there's he talks about how there's 100 cities that are dedicated to dedicated to renewables already. And this was in 2019. So I think that
Hmm.
there's more now, but how there's 100 cities that have dedicated to being renewable by 2030 or 2035.
Hmm.
What I found really interesting was his distinction between like there being like a dedication to it and then like a law about it. And
Right.
throughout this book he gives these like updates, and really all he's asking is for his city to like say that they will try. And I love it cuz he was like, yeah, it was pushed back, there's not going to be a vote, just over and over and over again. And he was like, we're just going to raise it again, it's no problem, I like we've been doing this forever, it just takes time doing it over and over again.
Yeah. Continuously showing up and for the same cause, just like
Yeah.
not giving up by even if you're getting pushback, which
Mhm.
he very actively was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was a good example of like he talks about boycotts being boring, and like it was a good example of like, yeah, this is a boring thing because you
Hmm.
have to do it over and over and over again. You have to be the weird one. You have to be like the one making the change and the one like focused on making this difference. And you if you're not like being that person and just like stable in that person, then we're not going to get anywhere. But you have to like be the leader there. And then afterwards, everybody will be like, why weren't we doing what you were doing the whole time?
Right. Kind of like how people look at like, yeah, the civil rights movement and things like that. And he gives some really, really interesting examples. I mean, his first example is about the Boston Tea Party, and then it
Mm-hmm.
goes into
The salt tax.
yeah, India and Gandhi and
Yep.
apartheid, and then a bit about the bus boycott
Yep.
in during the civil rights movement.
Yep.
All of which were really cool examples, because they are real, first off, but they are all things that like similarly in some ways to fossil fuels, so deeply ingrained in every aspect of society.
Yep.
And so those were, I thought that those were really good examples, because I think people living back then would probably feel the same way that people are feeling now, which is just sort of like, how can we even go about changing something that is so
Yeah.
connected to everything that we do? Um, and there's a lot of fear in that change and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, I liked that those I like those examples because it kind of set the tone for like it's happened before, but it's never been easy. And
Right.
it's never not going to be. And
Right.
maybe in my mind, yeah, I was sort of hoping that this book would give more of like a here's the thing to do.
5 steps. Yeah.
But that's not a reality, I suppose. And I suppose that's a really hard thing to expect one person to give
I
give.
mean, we have yet to find there's yet to be a solution like that, right? I think part of what we're doing here is to understand the issues so that we can give solutions like that, especially to small businesses.
Mhm.
Because, like, I don't fucking know what to do, right? I don't know
Right.
how to solve this problem.
Yeah. He gives some tangible examples for sure. And I think that those examples, which are like, eating less meat, um, trying to not purchase as much from the fossil fuel industry, and that he kind of pairs those things that individuals can do while also talking about larger things like
Mhm.
divesting your if you have investments, like making sure that those investments are not in any way tied to fossil fuel industry, um, and that combination of like larger divestments from an industry plus like individual pressure from boycotting, from not no longer like monetarily supporting something, are really kind of what's made those changes happen in the future. So that was cool. Like
Mhm.
that was like, yeah, I mean, it has to be like a two-pronged approach, I suppose.
Yeah. And then or a three-pronged approach because then you also need for as a person a two-pronged, but then as
Yeah.
a person like then moving into a community space where you start to I actually after reading this reached out to a friend of mine who is a Dutch man that like I think could maybe help me start one of these communities or find a community that we could join together because I'm really interested in knowing like where are we in our area and what can we change and like let's have these like conversations because I think he made these conversations feel really accessible. He
Hmm.
was like he was like just start it in your church club or in your book club, or for me, it would be my climbing club or whatever. A club that already exists that already like brings you together. Just kind of bring it up and be like, so I'm also wondering if we can maybe start this movement or maybe start talking about like what we can do to not use as many fossil fuels because the idea is that we need to boycott fossil fuels. I mean, that's the whole point. It's like, how can we do that? How can we stop putting money towards this thing that is ending, you know? And
Mhm.
and it's a good point, you know? He's like the only reason why it's not happening is because we're not doing it.
Mhm.
We're still giving them money. We're being like, "We need to change," and then doing not making those changes in ourselves to, like,
Right.
not drive, not eat meat, make sure our investments are going to positive places instead of this, like, fossil fuel issue, right? And that's personally, but it's also citywide and countrywide, it's global, and in order to and every decision we make is a local decision. And
Yeah.
it's so easy to look at a global issue and be like,
I can't
I,
even.
I, I
Yeah.
don't even know. I don't know.
Mhm.
But the reality is, everything starts local. Everything has to start locally.
Right.
Even he was
Right.
talking about in the apartheid part, where that became a global issue. And the way, like, by starting local, and then all of a sudden the globe was divesting in South Africa. We were like,
Mhm.
nope,
Yeah. Yeah.
not doing it. So that's what we need to figure out how to do. And we need to do it within communities. And we need to make like the community of Eindhoven and then like the community of Ventura, California, and then once those are happening within our space, then we can figure out how to connect those two communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which will make it a global stance. It's complicated.
In theory, yes, but yeah, but I think that like a point that he made that I did like was that so much of what the individual decision making is, it is tied to fossil fuels because like everything, like how we power everything is
All the
run by
things, yeah.
fossil fuels. Getting in our car, what we eat. Even if we're eating vegetables, that there are still that's still like traditional agriculture still uses a
Yeah.
ton of fossil fuels and stuff like that, and that there's a lot of these like invisible connections that like
Mm-hmm.
we don't see because we are out of touch with how things are produced or
Yeah.
made. And I thought that was a good point because I think that that's like the crux of where people feel like they don't know how to begin with their own personal changes, and it's because we're not seeing either
Yeah.
side of it. We're not seeing the problematic beginnings of where our stuff comes from, nor the consequences yet,
Right.
and so like we're in this point where people don't have to fully deal with it yet. You can still take the stance of like, that's not happening because in my world everything's fine.
Right.
And that's the challenging piece, I think, when trying to grow this
Right.
movement, is getting folks to understand that every single one of those decisions is a place where you can choose to actively boycott fossil fuels if
Mm-hmm.
you put forth the effort to do so.
Right. And creating like a structure for your life. Like look at the things, write down, I don't know, maybe this is so much, but the way I would approach it after reading this book, the way I would approach it is to write down all the stuff I buy and all the stuff I do
Mm,
in a week. And then just like trace back those things to where they come from.
yeah.
And then be like, okay, what can I change about that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's especially interesting, he's going, we need to do a carbon boycott right now. But he's also saying we need to do it the way we can over the next 20 years.
Right.
And he talks a lot. I appreciate that he talks a lot about access. He's not
Mm-hmm.
just saying like do it now and
Right. Yeah.
even no matter what. He does, and he talks about like solar, how, and this is a really good example, I think, because solar, it's in its industry, it's in its infancy, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the tech behind solar will get so much better. They're like 25% or something efficient right now. Actually, interestingly, one of Tom's first projects for Lightyear was making solar panels more efficient. So
You want to
that
introduce
tech
Tom and Lightyear? Who are Tom and
Tom
Lightyear?
Oh, Tom. We say me every time. It's like these people fucking know. Tom is my boyfriend.
Let's not
And
assume. I don't know. For our new audience,
yeah,
potentially, let's give some
yeah.
context.
Tom is my boyfriend, and Lightyear is the solar car project that he is part of.
Solar car project, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
revolutionary, honestly.
It is a very cool and revolutionary car that is solar and electricity run. The Even the motor is in the like wheels, and the battery is a lot thinner and smaller, so it's just like the most efficient options we can make. It's a totally re-envisioning of cars, like, right.
Mhm.
I'm not going to go into it, but the point of
That's a
the
good,
point of
yeah,
it,
that was a good
yeah,
wrap up. Yeah.
cool. The point of it was that like even being able to a really like we can't even right now make it so that a solar panel can share energy across a panel if it's not hit all at the same time, right? So that was one of his
Mhm.
first projects. So if a solar panel, like on the back of a car, is bent, is curved, the light is going to hit it differently. The
Mhm.
light is going to hit this part of the top part of the car and the side part of the car at a different angle. It's going, one of those throughout the day is going to be less efficient.
Mhm.
We don't have the tech yet, except for that, like, that's what he helped develop, so that when solar energy is hitting one part of a solar panel, when the sun's hitting one part of a solar panel differently than another part of the solar panel, that the whole solar panel can still effectively take in the same amount of energy.
Mhm.
That's just a way to increase that efficiency. So this technology is totally in its infancy. It is growing like crazy.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he talks about how Sam Avery in this book talks about how that will be able to meet our needs in the future. But in the beginning, solar panels were only available to rich folks.
Right. They were the early adopters because they could afford to be.
They could afford it. And like he talks about, I like how he talks about accesses, because he talks about it like he is very clear that having the ego around what you can afford like isn't productive, and that when you can afford something and then you're like, I have solar panels.
Mhm.
Like it's not an effective way to operate, but like having but realizing, oh yes, I'm even at Greece. But like
Not
having
effective.
not effective.
Not Yes.
Yeah, but that like those people that when you can afford it, that you should realize that like you are making it possible for future generations to have access
Mhm.
to this technology.
Right, yeah, which that was an interesting point that he mentioned something like for every person who, was an early adopter of solar panels, um, it then made those solar panel production companies able to produce things more affordably. Like the people who paid
Yeah.
the higher price at the beginning allowed for them to make things more efficiently or make things more
Mhm.
affordable down the line. And like every time with every like new shift of people who can now afford it, it's like like kind of trickling down in a way.
Right.
Um
Right. And that's still a reality, you know?
Right. There's kind of yeah, but there's no way around that, that's always going to be the case, I suppose,
Right.
until cities are able and willing to, create their own systems to subsidize,
Yep.
for different areas of lower income or creating something that is like community held and run and something that isn't individually bought and paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I was just
Yeah.
talking we were just talking about it. Like I feel like as Dandelion gets more successful and as we are able to grow as a business and like just in my partnership in our house and in our household and in our family as we grow, that I feel more responsible. I feel like we should be more responsible for being shepherds of the world we want to live in. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
What doesn't make sense to me is this idea that like I just get money and then it's mine and then I don't do anything with it and fuck everybody else. Like that is just not.
Yeah.
I've never understood that principle.
Me neither. Right. Yeah. Right. It's such a weird what need are they fulfilling? Like if you already have $1 billion, like does that how you get your rocks off is like by
Or a million.
looking at your bank account? Yeah, even a million or so. Like there are
If I had a few $1,000s in my bank account, like like if I had 5 figures in my bank account, I'd be like, all right, I'm at that level where where a lot of people never make it to, I feel more
Mhm.
responsible as a steward
Yeah.
for the life that the future I think our planet deserves. And I think like that's a big part of this book
Mhm.
and like something that I feel like is really important for us to think about and to migrate to as a society, that we're not there yet, but like I think that is an important shift that needs to happen.
Yeah. I mean, to some extent, that is sort of what's happening with, you know, with conscious consumerism and with sustainable brands in general, is that like they are a little bit more expensive than their traditional alternatives, but that's because they're not utilizing, unfair practices to cut their prices, right?
Mhm.
So but the folks that are kind of the early adopters of a lot of that those products are folks with more, I guess, what's the word, expendable income.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I liked that he was conscious of kind of making that point too, where it was like, for folks that are worried, that are very realistically dealing with things on a month by month basis, where you don't know necessarily if you're going to have like enough money to pay rent. Like, you're not really, if you're forced to choose between two items, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to buy the more expensive one because in the long run it'll
Mhm.
like that's just a fact we can't expect folks to make the more sustainable choice at that point in their life, when they
Right.
are, when money is unstable, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Right, which
but
is
in
a
time, it becomes more and more of just kind of a standard, or like, yeah,
Mhm.
or something that is
Or
more financially accessible,
right, and it also like
which is happening.
sustainability
Yeah.
in our version of sustainability, our definition of sustainability, we include fair trade and fair pay. So as sustainability becomes more accessible and more normalized, like then the price of the products will go down.
Mhm.
And as sustainability, even in our definition, becomes more the norm, the pay of people will increase.
Mhm.
So really what we're working towards is this like boring balance of
Yeah.
of fair living between humans and also the planet and also like this space that we're in. And for some reason, people are like mad about that.
Ah, yeah, it's some like deep seated capitalism, pull myself up by my bootstraps, I don't care about my neighbor type thing. It's very problematic way of thinking, and that
Yeah.
we've gotten to here in the States,
I
but a
would
lot of Western
A lot
culture.
of Western, but I would also say that you can care about your neighbor and pull yourself up by your bootstraps at the same
Mm,
time, you know?
absolutely, but yeah, those are just two things that often go hand in hand.
True.
This
Right. And
individualistic way of viewing the world, where everything is focused on me trying to raise my status at
right.
whatever cost, you know.
Right.
Um,
It's ugly.
it's just a weird thing. Yeah, something.
Something went
I don't know
wrong.
what they're trying to prove and who they're trying to prove it to, but it's a bunch of
Yeah.
BS.
Being an ugly asshole will never make you happy no matter how much money you make.
Yeah.
That's like one of the number one things you learn from like Disney movies and shit or like
Right? Right?
Scrooge.
Scrooged? And did anybody see Scrooge?
Excuse me? Don't you know?
Yeah, no, it's true, yet it's still such a part of this kind of old way of thinking.
Yeah, and it's a huge part of this issue.
It is, because those are the folks that are reluctant to change.
And they are the folks with the most power. Like,
There's a lot of them.
there's a lot of people that have power, and with power, with money comes power, and with power comes money, and it's this like stupid cycle. And they are so reluctant to share that like they don't do things like invest in solar or invest in renewables. And in my mind, they're choosing not to invest in global equality, because so much of renewables is based on this idea of like energy democracy, like we talked about, or like decentralizing energy,
Yeah.
which you can't do with fossil fuels, because it has to come from a single place. It's like the cheapest way to do it is like it goes to a single place, and then it's disseminated. But that's not the case with renewables. So it feels to me like these people in power that they just don't want to give up any level of give to make things more equal, which is a damn shame. Like,
But it's so strange, because it's like, at no point is that going to make them as an individual less anything, less powerful, less like it doesn't. Like, what are they afraid of, actually?
right.
I don't know that answer. And yeah, before we started recording, we were talking about like, it's like, even if you like remove the conversation about climate change as an ecological global disaster,
Right.
potential reality.
Climate denial is true. But
like, right, if you even take that out of the equation, there's still a ton of people who are like adamant supporters of the fossil fuel industry, but like it's a fact that is a finite resource that we're getting to the bottom of.
Right. Like, bro, you're fighting for a lost cause. And not only that, but it's like not just powerful people, right? Powerful people with money, they're going to be able to afford fossil fuels longer, because eventually we're going to run out, demand is going to be the same, and then the price will skyrocket, and then poor people will be like, it's not fair, and rich people will be like, I'm living my life. Cool. More separation of wealth. Cool. That's fuck that. But like, it's actually gonna, and then even then it will go away after that.
Right.
Like,
what then?
Doesn't make no sense.
What do you, right? I don't know what they think is gonna happen, which is interesting. I know somebody who actually works in the oil industry, so this is, maybe I'll ask him. It's bound to probably be somewhat of a contentious point. I don't mean it to. I'm just curious,
Send a text like, yo,
hey, so like, what the hell are you guys gonna do when there's no more oil? Like,
yeah, JW, what's up with this end of oil situation?
Right. Is that talked about in your guys' meetings? Like, it should be. It should be.
Yeah.
No,
are you like
yeah,
planning on changing your career soon? You will have to.
It's very interesting. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, so that's like that's what I think is so challenging about this. And I guess that's what I got so kind of like overwhelmed by this book, because it's like, on a personal level, I don't know how to convince someone to care about other people if they don't by default.
Right.
And that is what we need for this.
Is
movement.
Is it? Like,
I think that's kind of the basis of like.
Yeah, but he also talks about how not everybody is going to be a part of it. But there are people out there that that do want to live in this type of community, and it's about finding those people and making groups out of them more than it is about arguing with people, because yeah, you can't make somebody care about some other people, you just can't. But there's enough people out there that do care, that are kind of like, I don't know what to do, that we can like, all of us can like get together and like try to start enacting change. Like it can just take 2 or 3 people and then that can grow. But because in general, those people that don't care about other people, like they're fucked anyway.
Yeah, I guess that's true, right? Like it's like they're yeah.
The
And
reality
there's no
is,
strength in the movement by convincing them, and now they're okay, now we're like one person stronger. But if it's like, it has to be
right,
passionate people, I suppose, that are leading
right.
it. Yeah.
Because they're fucked anyway. We're all fucked anyway. Like that's the thing, is like we literally, like we have no choice, y'all. Like climate
Right.
change or no climate change. Climate change is a big fucking problem. But like with even without it, we can't go a day. Like most of our society will die if we ran out of fossil fuels tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot. This is like
Right. Right.
yeah.
Right. It is a very real crisis that's like on the horizon. Um, yeah, but it
No matter
regardless
what.
of climate change, right? Yeah.
So maybe we try to change the focus to just like climate change is part of it, but like the human focus needs to be on fossil fuel divestment, I think.
Mhm.
That's kind of this, because climate change is, we talked about earlier, it's a lag indicator of like the shit we've done. There's like 20, what the effect we're seeing now was caused 20 years ago.
Mhm.
So we need to think about it that way in these types of conversations. But I think in the conversations where it's like, how do you get people to care, you get them to care about themselves.
Right.
Like, you are not going to be able to turn your light on your refrigerator. No, I've been living without a freezer for the past 8 months, and I can tell you right now, it sucks.
Hmm.
Like, just that one thing, like I don't have
Right.
a freezer and it fucking sucks. And like, you try to just be like, hey, if you if you want to keep refrigerated food, we should probably have a conversation about where your energy source is coming from.
That's true. Yeah. If it's more like, let's talk about the luxuries in which you feel so
Yeah.
tied. Yeah. Let's,
Yeah.
right. How can we make sure that you continue to have
Right. Clean water, like some of it's a lot of it's not even luxury. It's just like you can't
the necessities, right? Food.
right, most of your food has fossil fuels. You're gonna grow your own food. I actually am gonna try to grow my own food, but like in general,
Yeah, just our society isn't prepared to go back to the times where we were growing our own food and like,
right?
yeah.
How, we can't we can't sustain what we're doing right now. And I think like to the point of how to get somebody to care about other people, we don't have to do that. We just need to like tap into their base
Yeah. That's a
care
good
of
point.
themselves, which
Yeah.
is exactly what the fossil fuel industry does and all their bullshit propaganda. So basically, we just need to like study fossil fuel propaganda over the past 30 years and just say the same thing in true language,
Yeah.
you
We
know?
could, yeah. I mean, now that they've been running this propaganda game for so long, we've got a pretty good like
We could
framework
just,
for
yeah,
what's worked changing
let's just
public
do a case
opinion.
study. We'll just do a case study and then we'll just change their words to
Yeah.
be truthful. And
Control F, Control V. Control. Yeah.
yeah, Because he makes a really good point, right? And this goes back to this point that he makes, is it's not renewable energy versus fossil fuel energy, actually. It's renewable energy versus no energy.
Yeah, that was a really good point that it's true.
Like,
Yeah.
we will have to adapt to this. I also love that he was like, we are going to have to adapt. We're going to have to make a transition.
Yeah.
We're going to have to. How much we transition right now will make it easier when we're out of fossil fuels, when we literally can't use them anymore. So we can either go like going along, do, and then just kind of have like a hard transitionary switch, or we can just like basically fucking fall off a cliff. Those are our two options that we have right now. That's our reality. We can build a bridge or not.
Yeah. Hmm. 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 Hmm.
Yeah.
It's I mean, ultimately, I do think that this book would be a good read for someone who is just sort of interested in better understanding why we need to move away from fossil fuels.
Yeah.
I think it was a good, and then also how, to some extent, right? And how these things have been done in the past to create kind of these overarching,
Yeah.
massive societal structure changes.
Mm-hmm. Right. I like the focus on the actual issues. Actually, there's this whole part. It's on, I don't know what chapter it's in because we listened to it. And one of my big issues with audio books is that there's no like, a lot of times it just says track, like the tracks aren't labeled. So I don't know where I am in the book.
Right. They announce the
Actually,
chapters, but they don't match with the.
with the description of like the playlist. It's essentially
Mhm.
like a playlist. And it's just like track 1, 2, 3.
Mhm.
It's not my favorite thing. If you're ever going to do an audiobook, make sure your tracks are labeled. It's really
And just
nice.
have them correspond to chapters of the book.
Yeah, but sometimes like a book is broken into multiple, or a chapter is broken into multiple tracks, or like an
Right, but
introduction
why? Right.
and an epilogue. I don't
That's
know.
fine. Make that whatever. Okay.
Okay.
This is-
Anyway, just name your damn tracks. Anyway, so track 6, like 15 minutes into track 6 of this book, he gives like a what if we what if we just did it? What if we were just like, what if there wasn't a reason? If there wasn't a fossil fuel shortage, if there wasn't a climate change problem, like, and we just, and if we get to a place, we stop fossil fuels and we realize that like it was stupid to do that because fossil fuels don't actually cause climate change. What if? What if?
Mhm.
He was like, you know what would stop? Roadside pollution, black lung from the like he like this he just made this like long ass list of things that would just be better, that just
Mhm.
wouldn't happen. Like there is no downside to making this transition to renewable energy except for our discomfort maybe for a short time while we're in this transition.
Right.
But we need that transition anyway. So we should just start the transition now so that in 30 years, when we don't have a choice,
When it's a make or break, yeah.
it's easy.
Yeah. Right. I liked that his time frame was realistic. Like, yeah, he definitely gave some, like, he was like, yep, we're gonna do this is 100% boycott of fossil fuels entirely, you know, but it wasn't like tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
yeah. So it's like, And that's what people need to understand, because it's not so black or white. Like, yeah. And
Mhm.
I did appreciate.
Yeah, like when you make big changes in your life, that's when you should make big changes away from fossil fuels.
Mm-hmm.
Is what he was saying. Like we have an old car, and Tom and I have talked about several times that when we get a new car, we will get an electric car.
Mm-hmm.
Our house is currently run on gas, but we want to change that and run it on electric. And actually, we want to run heating on geothermal, like on. He talked about it in the book. It's water. What is it? Um,
Hydroelectric? Wait.
it's not hydroelectric. It's because the ground, like 5 feet under the ground, it starts at around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. It like stays that
Yeah.
temperature, so you use that to like
Is that
keep a
not
constant
geothermal?
temperature in your house.
Okay.
Yeah. Heat pump, it's called. We want to use like heat pump for our heating,
Hmm.
which is actually a huge investment right now, but we are in that place where we're like, okay, do we
Right.
make a huge investment right now
Right.
to make this cheaper in the long run, to help with this technology that's cheaper in the long run?
Right. But you are at that point where you were making that decision because you're rebuilding the house from the ground up, essentially.
Right.
So like,
We're
and
making the big change because we're making a big change. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And like, yeah, he definitely, made the point where like he's not saying you need to go and move because maybe your house isn't ideal for putting solar panels on it right now.
Hmm.
Um, or like you don't need to go out and like buy everything new today, which is
Right.
definitely something that we also fully have like talked about that sentiment, because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Don't just be like, my shit's not sustainable, so I'm going to throw everything away and get sustainable stuff.
right, right,
You missed the point. You missed the point.
right.
Don't do that. Don't
Um,
do that.
and I liked that because it was more, yeah, it's like do it as you can as these things arise in your life. Yeah, like
Hmm.
same. Like next time I get a car, it'll most likely be, I would like it to be an electric car,
Hmm.
which is probably not going to be too far away. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, but I'm not going to go out and do that right now because that's not, because my car is doing just fine, and
You
I
also
don't even
drive a
really use
Prius.
it. I don't even use it.
Right. Yeah.
It
You also
actually,
drive a Prius, so like
I
pretty
don't
pretty
know if it
efficient.
is. No.
That's what I said.
What?
But what you have right now is pretty efficient.
Oh, it is fairly efficient. Yes. It's not a Prius, but it's fairly efficient. Yes.
Why
Yeah.
did I think you drive a Prius? What do you
I have
drive?
no idea. I drive a little Hyundai hatchback. It's a gas car. It's not a Prius. I don't know why you thought I drove a
Why did I
Prius.
think
I don't know. But I've had it, yeah. I mean, it's almost fully paid off. Like yeah, it's in really good shape because I literally don't really ever go anywhere. I don't really drive it. And I'm lucky to live in a place where everything is within a few miles, like
that?
yeah,
Hmm.
um it's quite different. Yeah, my lifestyle is quite different from a lot of people if you were like commuting and stuff like that, like yeah, but
Right.
all of these things are factors in how you make those consumer decisions, right?
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, I understand that, my car's carbon output isn't much of a factor. Like I could definitely make other changes in my life that would more positively benefit my carbon footprint than my
Hmm.
car right now. Yeah. Like
Right.
eating meat. I think that's a big one. That was one that like I eat meat. I eat meat fairly often.
Yep.
And that's something I'm gonna reconsider or try to, kind of just incorporate more plant-based meals or get more comfortable with more plant-based meals. And it's not a thing that I need to start tomorrow. It's not a thing that I'm like, okay, now I'm vegan. But some
Right.
people that is a choice that you can
Right.
make, right? I'm somebody who wants to make changes in my life a little bit more gradually.
Hmm. I'm never, and I agree with you. I probably won't ever be fully vegetarian or fully vegan,
Yeah.
but I I'm also a big believer that it is possible to have a sustainable meat option.
Yeah.
I know that it is possible. I also know that we're not doing it in as a society.
Yeah.
So we've made the active decision that when we buy meat, it is it is the biological meat, it is grass-fed. We pay extra, like in the Netherlands, it's a lot extra,
Yeah.
because we want to make that source more accessible in the future.
Right.
And we don't want to give money to people that don't do it the right way, you know?
Yeah.
That's another big part of it. Also, food waste is huge.
Yeah.
What I love about the grocery stores here that I've never seen before is that there is a bin that they keep at a certain part of the store that they put all the food in that will go bad in the next like 2
Mm.
days,
Mm-hmm.
and they seriously discount it. So we go there looking for bio meat because we don't want the specifically meat to go bad.
Bio meat is organic there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Biologisch,
Biologie.
something like that.
Biologie.
Ye-
Listen,
Yeah.
yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. I think they only have that, well, at my grocery store just for produce. Like this a super
Produce is also in there.
yeah.
There's like anything in that bucket, there's anything that is packaged
Okay.
goes in that bucket.
Really
They're produce.
smart. Like discount the stuff that's about to expire. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, rather than throwing it away. Yeah.
Yeah. It and that kind of stuff makes a huge difference. Like it's a small thing, but like those are the things that matter, and that's what makes it so difficult because it's a global issue that is only changed by making these like small changes. Like I'm going
Mhm.
to get this bio meat that I have to eat today rather than this meat that like isn't made isn't grown sustainably or sourced well,
Yeah.
or like
Factory
I'm gonna buy
farmed, terrible carbon emissions. Yeah.
yeah, or I'm gonna buy the vegetables not in plastic that are
Mhm.
a little bit more expensive from the farm store rather than going to get the plastic wrapped peppers or whatever. Like those types of things make a huge difference.
Right. Right.
We just yeah, in community they make a big difference.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, because when people start to see that other people are making those changes, it becomes easier for them to be like, oh, okay. Like for someone who's like on the fence or like a little bit like,
Mhm.
I don't know, I don't want to be the one that's like saying, hey, don't bag my stuff in plastic,
Yeah.
like I brought my own or whatever. Like seeing more people do it
Yeah.
makes it easier for you to
Yep.
not feel like the one.
Yeah. And he talks about that
Yeah.
in this book. He talks the whole last part is him basically being like, "We're weird. We're weird. Stay weird. Keep
Yeah.
being the weirdo because that's because you're doing it
Yeah.
for everybody, you know?" And I really liked that. He was like, "Yep, we're weird, but my community is getting old and we need young and what we can do now is pass this on to the next generation," which I think they've done a pretty good job at actually. But like
Mhm.
and we are the old weirdos and we're bringing up the new weirdos and we're all just like commiserating in weirdness together and it's so cool.
Yeah.
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 I guess that's how it starts, right? Yeah. Just find your local weirdos that also want to save the planet. And
Do it.
it's- yeah. I mean, everybody's going to be, yeah, facing something a little bit different, right? Like, yeah,
Mhm.
maybe in your area it is like finding a community of people who could invest in solar panels for everybody, and like
Mhm.
then you have some sort of a community owned and operated energy
Right.
system, which is
Right.
not impossible by any means, and something that
No.
I think that your community would probably super embrace.
Yep.
Here, it maybe is like, you know, showing folks that they could buy things that aren't wrapped in plastic, or teaching
Mhm.
people how to better recycle, things like that. Like, yeah, I think that every
Right. It's a
area is,
local issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
every area is going to have a different thing that their people that, is
Yeah.
that you can identify that people need help better understanding or making that change, right? So
Right. And it's up to us to make those local choices and solve those local problems, and then do that, and then work together to bring those solutions global.
yeah.
We can do it. We can do it.
We have 30 years, but we've got to start
That's
today
a whole
also.
generation. That means that everybody that has a baby this year needs to teach that baby that they shouldn't use fossil
Make
fuels when
your baby listen to Boycott Fossil Fuels by Sam Avery.
yeah. Yeah, play it to them in your belly.
In utero.
Yeah. Yeah.
In all seriously, no, I'm sorry, I made a joke.
Seriously though,
Serious.
I'm
But yeah,
totally
yeah,
uh Tom's brother just had a baby, and I'm definitely going to teach that kid how to be ecological weirdo.
yeah, yeah. And I honestly think that, like, even like the generation after us, like Gen whatever Z, is even more progressive than we are. Like,
They should
absolutely.
be. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, I have hope for sure. But yeah,
Mhm.
we just, I mean, essentially this movement, like this anti-fossil fuel movement has to find a way to better market itself to people who um don't want to change, right? And it's just kind of marketing. Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, so now we need to go about talking to them in a different way. And the
Mhm.
movement has to find different voices that folks will resonate with.
Yeah. Hey, that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't trying to really get there, but yes,
But
no,
it's
right.
true though.
It is true.
Yeah, that's what Dandelion is dedicated to, right? Is
Mhm.
like marketing for sustainable brands, like bringing sustainability into the mainstream part of society.
Right. Right. And it's messaging. It's finding a way for to hit on those pain points like you mentioned, like to get folks to see that this way that we're living right now is not sustainable. And if they don't make changes, there will be consequences that are
Right.
outside of anyone's control.
Right. And maybe it's even removing the word sustainable from that message,
Totally. Yeah, that's a
because sustainable is a social cause word. But like but in the way you were using it was sustainable as in like possible in the
yeah.
future, like
Yes,
like
exactly.
the
Yeah.
actual definition of sustainable,
Yeah,
not
it cannot be sustained. Yes.
cannot be right. You cannot continue to do it, not
Right.
as then I'm banning you from doing it because you're an asshole. I'm saying that you will not be able to.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do we get that point across?
Yeah.
Because that's what the word sustainable means, but like it is so it has such a context to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to remove that like hippie, we have to find a new language that doesn't have this like hippie, like love everybody change
Yeah. That somebody
vibe.
from middle America, more conservative, wouldn't feel immediately turned off by. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
That is something that the movement, I think, is struggling with. I think it's and we have, yeah, I think that it's realistic to have to focus on a way to kind of rebrand in some ways. And
Hmm. Rebranding sustainability. Jesus, but you're right. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, we have to outsmart who we're fighting against, and they're the best marketers in the world, the fucking
They
fossil
created marketing. So yeah,
fuel. Yeah, I don't
yeah.
know, man. It's pretty wild, but
It's exciting. This
but there's
book
hope.
feels exciting.
Yeah.
I feel really excited by this like hope here and this like truth and kind of a plan and kind of an idea and a community and also he shared this vision he had that like I've had similar visions of like standing at a tree line. Have you ever stood at like, this isn't his words, it's mine now.
Mm.
But have you ever stood at a tree line at dusk and you can like look up and on one side you can see all the trees and on the other side it's clear cut, like
Not specifically clear cut, but kind
like a
of. I have had
house
a
or like a
curious, yeah, that's I've had some sort of an experience then like that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, where you just and he said it so brilliantly. It's the very last part of the book and it is like one sentence, but it's just it resonated with me so strongly because in my childhood home we have a fire pit that we have fires at all the time and it's right at the edge of our land. So not at the edge of our land, actually at the edge of the forest on our land. And like so there's our house and our yard and then we have like an acre of yard and then we have several acres of forest that we just let be forest. And in the like dusky evening when you're watching like the smoke come up and the wind is blowing and the forest is dark but it feels alive against the sky that is not black yet, it feels like you're standing at like the forest is standing at attention, it
Mm.
like waiting for something to come. And it's easy to imagine, especially as an environmentalist, that it's like the front line and that you are standing at the front line of an army. And like I've had, and he talks about this feeling in this at the end of this book, and I was like, whoa, because I've never talked to somebody else that that has had like that vision besides like sitting around the campfire when I was a freaking like preteen teenager, and
Yeah.
this feeling started, and it just I felt like it feels to me like I mean that was the time that I decided to be a steward of the planet because you look and you see this like beautiful big canopies and treetops and then just nothing against the sky and it's so beautiful but you can it feels like the forest is waiting, like
Hmm.
the forest knows that something is coming and you can like get that in those dusky connector thinly veiled hours.
Hmm.
And that he like brought that up made me feel like he has had that moment where he's like, I'm a steward for this planet. I will fight for this planet. I'm in front of this now. I will stand in front of this forest because he said what they're looking at is chainsaws and groups of people that with veiled faces that like their faces blended with the crowd and you can't see them. It's just destruction and chainsaws and buildings and bulldozers. They don't stand a chance without us standing in front of the forest. Like the forest doesn't stand a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool. That was cool to like
Powerful
connect.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm. It's up to us.
it is. It is. We have to be on those front lines. We have to be the steward that we say we'll be, you know, or that we are trying to be every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, gosh. So you would highly recommend this book, I imagine?
I definitely would.
Yeah. Yeah. I would too. I didn't, I mean, just
You have
because
to be dedicated. I think
yeah,
you have to be dedicated, but I highly recommend it if you feel dedicated.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's a bit about the carbon boycott. Yeah, let's see. Um, we're gonna continue talking about the renewable transition
Next
next
week. Yep.
week. Yep, we're trying to get potentially somebody lined up so we can interview them, but nothing is solidified yet. So
Yeah, we'd love to have a visitor.
yeah, yeah, it's everybody's busy all the time, but that's yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, but if not, we'll be back again next week to talk more.
Yep.
Yeah. So, if you like this video, then please subscribe and join us on this journey of learning more about these issues and better understanding what we're facing here.
Yeah,
As
and how to
this,
make it better.
yeah. Cool. Yeah. All
Thank you,
right.
everyone.
Thanks for watching. Bye.